This is going to be absolutely enormous for crypto. The release of this Apple VR headset on the 2nd of February, just around the corner, is going to be huge for 3 carefully selected cryptos that I'm going to talk about in depth in this video. Also, if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll give you some price predictions for each of these crowd favorites. So do me a favor, hit that like button, and let's get into today's video. So guys, here we are over on BBC News. Apple Vision Pro $3,500 headset finally gets a release date. Now guys, I know that's expensive and most of you are like, wow, who's going to pay that? Well, it doesn't matter. Some people will, but what this innovation is going to bring about, like with the iPhone, is a whole host of VR virtual reality headsets that are going to fly off the shelves from Samsung, from Microsoft, you name it guys, they're coming in force. Remember when the first iPhone got launched? Well, once that happened, we then saw Samsung arrive on the market, Lenovo, you name it guys, and that smartphone market exploded in like 6 months. This Apple VR headset relies quite heavily on a lot of things in cryptocurrency. And you're like, well, why would that be? Well, first of all, because it's going to rely a lot on computational demand and AI. As we look into this chart, we can see something very interesting indeed. Compute requirements for AI apps are increasing 10x every 18 months. This is unbelievable. And if you're clued in at all to how crypto works, you will start to understand that right now what I'm going to say about some of these projects is absolutely key. This is where we're going to see the biggest growth over the next year, and in a video I'm going to make tomorrow, I'm going to nail into this further and a new project that's coming up that's going to explode because of this. So make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on if you want to catch that. And look at this guys, since we saw the launch earlier on last year of ChatGPT 4, we've seen an absolute explosion in AI driven technology, okay? And that's having a huge impact on the overall marketplace. Why? Because guys, look at the growth curve here. 2021, 17 billion, 285 billion next year, and then 1.7 trillion by 2030. This growth curve is unbelievable. And I think this virtual reality headset is going to add massively to the demand with a lot more gaming, a lot more AI driven tech going into it, and as well potential for access to a metaverse environment. But there's a problem with all of this. It takes a huge demand on 2 things, which I've talked about recently, which is storage and also computational power, which is what we're going to focus on with our first project today. Now, Elon Musk said that GPU power is harder to buy than drugs, and therefore traditional GPU systems supplying the market are really struggling to cope with the demand. And that is very important because when we look at what this particular headset might be starting to demand on, then we can start to think about which projects will benefit the most from this. And leading into this first project today, which you're probably aware by now, is Render. And why am I talking about Render? Well, look guys, this is the amount of scenes that were being rendered on the Render network over the year. And look guys, while the price has been increasing like most cryptos because retail and whatever's pumping money into it right now, this is an actual project that's actually starting to grow from its actual own merits, which I know guys is a bit weird in crypto. And that as well has caused this. We've seen an exponential growth in the Render network token holders throughout 2023. And this is important because typically you will see boom and bust in most cryptos. And that's because it's mostly right now retail driven. It's driven by the hype and excitement, but this is different. You see that gradual growth curve? That means one thing. That gradual growth curve, despite the markets throughout last year being up and down, means that people are actually holding and buying Render token in order to use that service. Now, obviously, you get a lot of people buying and speculating on Render as well, which is obviously helping this growth curve. Now, a lot of you might not know what Render is unless you are following me on Twitter, link down below, where you can keep up to date with my deep dives into coins like Render. Guys, I did a deep dive on Render back on October the 20th, and you can see from that date, we then had a price move all the way up to around 209%. Currently, the price sits up 155% from there. But bear with me. Some of you will be like, oh, we're too late for this project. I don't think we are. If you can understand this about what Render Network does, then you will start to realize the potential scale of growth that this project, along with a number of other projects that I'm going to be continuing to talk about today and into the next few videos I make, then this could be a good move for you. Render offers something called a distributed GPU rendering service on the blockchain. Remember, GPUs are harder to buy than drugs, according to Elon Musk. It's extremely difficult right now to find the GPU computing power required to drive a lot of these big games, a lot of things such as the VR headset that are going to require rendering. And you're like, slow down. What is rendering? Fair enough. Okay, you know when you're in a video game or whatever it is, and you turn your character to another direction and see a new scene, that new scene didn't exist when that character's looking that way. So this is basically rendering. You basically move around, it creates a new scene, okay, by rendering that scene. This is done for movies, it's done for all sorts of different things. Imagine the demand for this in a metaverse, okay, particularly when you're going higher and higher with regards to the graphics on games and all sorts of things. The demand for GPU rendering is absolutely soaring, and that Apple VR headset is going to cause an explosion of other headsets to arrive. And in my opinion, anything that's within this particular niche is set to explode. And there is another project coming up which is hoping to be a render killer, and I'm going to talk about that in the next few weeks. Now, render has moved across to Solana, which is helping because it's extremely fast, and Solana ecosystem itself is booming, which is a positive move. Now, as we look across to the chart, before we look at the other two projects that I want to talk about, you will see this. Earlier on this year, we obviously had a much better time to be investing in. The same is true for all cryptos out there, but I want to point something out. There's a lot of noise and hype and whatever being like, tell me about this coin that's yet to pump. There's not that many, and I will show you a couple in a minute, but right now it's not necessarily the end of the world with some of these new projects pumping, if fundamentally they're pumping because of what they do rather than that hype and attention. If a project is just pumping because of the hype and attention, like last year when you saw meme coins and stuff exploding, they just pump because of hype. Render's not pumping just because of hype. Has a little bit of a hype train coming in, which you can see on Twitter, but also it's starting to be used. People are actually using this service, and that is very positive indeed. Now, as you can see, we had a break. I don't know why this line kind of exists like this. We had basically this kind of consolidation pattern. We've broken up above it. Now, what is good if you're looking to maybe enter into render? I'm not saying you enter in right now at all. I'm just looking at speculating on where we are right this second. We can see that we did have a good pullback to around $3.37, and since then, just a couple of days ago, we're now up another 28%. But this pattern is fairly classic, guys. A break, a retest of lower levels, and then a continuation. Now, in the last bull market, render only kind of got up to around $8.6, which from current level is only like a 2x, okay, which is nothing particularly exciting. But remember, a future 2030 $1.7 trillion, of which GPU rendering makes up a fairly large chunk, is definitely interesting. And as we look into the market cap right now, you can see $1.6 billion market cap on render, which is pretty big, guys, okay? So I don't anticipate maybe over the next couple of years seeing render doing more than like a 20x, okay? 20x would be unbelievable for render. But if you want to look at it like this, there are coins that will outperform it. But which ones they are is a bit more confusing. Finding coins that are going to give you 20-30x without much in terms of downside risk. And I am very cautious about saying that because crypto is risky. And, you know, who knows what happens tomorrow or the next day. But render seemingly doing quite well. Now, obviously, there are alternatives available. And I am very keen to cover one that's coming up in the next couple of weeks because it's already outperforming render in a massive way, okay? So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned. That one is going to be an absolute beast, guys. And I think it's going to leave render behind. The render killer. Now, as I get my breath back, where else can we see this Apple headset having a lot of value? In metaverse tokens, in esports, and other bits and pieces. So where do I turn? Veracity. Veracity is a very interesting project that gains a lot of hype and attention and then sort of falls by the wayside and gains more attention and whatever. Now, actually, Veracity.io is like a proof of impression. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so typically impressions means this. Now, imagine I've got a shop that sells watches. Now, I have to show that ad of the watch to a lot of people before someone goes and decides to buy it. Each of these people who views it is an impression. However, now, because everyone's greedy and everyone just wants to screw everyone else over to try and make more money, it's changed a bit. And that means that now people are employing bots, etc., to go and view other people's ads to use up their ad budget so they can go and make ads themselves and then get kind of like more views or more competitive views. It's all a bit fucked, really. But Veracity stops this happening, okay? So Veracity is there as a proof of view module, and this is very interesting because obviously going into the future can be used on things like YouTube, etc. But I don't think that's where we're going to see most of the value for Veracity developing. But I think it's going to come from another arm of Veracity called Vera Esports. And that's this. Esports is one of the biggest growing industries around the world right now. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Basically, people competing on video games while other people around the world watch them. This, again, is something that I think is going to be huge once that headset comes out, okay? And unlike render, which chart doesn't look quite so favorable right now, I'm very excited for Veracity and esports because Veracity's chart looks far more appealing, okay? Because we're far earlier on this chart than we are on the other one. Now, when does Veracity pump? It's unsure, but in the last bull market, you'll see that Veracity literally came out of nowhere, and from the 6th of March 2021 to literally April, which was the next month, it went up 32 or 33x. 33x in the space of like a month. And that is from not really far away from where the price is right now. Veracity's potential to have a killer move is, you know, pretty good in my opinion. Now we can see that we have a bit of an XRP-like consolidation going on right now. But I think this is a lower risk, higher reward kind of play right now, because you can see that we've been bouncing in this area here. Maybe we come down for another revisit there, which would be a little bit of a downside, somewhere like 20 to 25% down. But if we get this sort of break moving like this, within a very quick, short space of time, Veracity could really start to pick up and gain a lot of attention in the markets. Even back to all-time highs, Veracity has a very exciting prospect where you could see something like a 14x, 14 to 15x. Now, given the way that the space is moving forward, given the growth in esports, given the demand for proof of view when it comes to like e-commerce and stuff like that, I think Veracity is a very interesting one indeed, and I like the look of this chart right now. While a lot of other charts look very kind of high and they've been booming more recently, I think Veracity could look quite good. Okay, so Veracity, render, looking very healthy. And next one along, guys, is this, and it's Mana Decentraland, a project that everyone was talking about during the last bull market that no one's really been talking about much now. Now, to me, this is another very interesting project. I think we're going to see the metaverse finally kind of starting to become what it was supposed to be in the very first place. Now, whether you think that this virtual reality world where people are literally sat in their pants with their headsets on all day long is good for society or healthy or not, I don't really care, because people are going to do it whether I invest in it or not. So I kind of want to invest in it because I think that people are going to do it. Now, if you want to sit up there on your ivory tower and be like, oh, you shouldn't invest in this because it's not good for society, then yeah, be my guest. Fine. But yeah, guys, last bull market, this came out of nowhere and absolutely killed it. And now you're seeing all the time loads of stuff going on, all these like little events and stuff, the different games and things being launched. And yeah, like you might be like, oh, this kind of like metaverse is shit and stuff. But the first iPhone was shit, guys. And then it got really, really good. And now the first drones were shit. And now look at them, they're absolutely crazy. Okay, now everyone wants a bloody drone. This is what I'm kind of talking about. A lot of people are like, oh, this game's shit or whatever. Don't get too kind of stuck. If they have, one, the budget and the teams and everything, and the money will flow to them, you can only imagine the potential that is on offer here. Now, as we look at Mana Decentraland, again, you know, look at the price chart. This is why I've chosen Mana Decentraland today, and also partly because it fits very well into that kind of like virtual reality headset narrative going forward, where the metaverse, I think, actually takes off. Now, again, like Veracity, and this is why you can't really discard a lot of these coins, look at Mana Decentraland. For like a year almost, it's not a year, like 6 months almost, it did nothing. And then one day, I think it was Meta, or Facebook, changed its name to Meta, and then everyone was like, wow, Mana Decentraland. And Mana Decentraland, in that time, did basically a 7x, which is unbelievable. Because, guys, that is 1, 2, 3 days. Did a 7x in 3 days. And I anticipate, maybe, just maybe, we could start to see something like this occurring again. And I kind of just want exposure. I'm not saying go and fill your bags completely with this. I'm not promising that that happens again. But I personally want exposure to that VR headset kind of thing going along. As we look into the charts, we also have a very nice looking chart for Mana Decentraland. And what can we see? Well, not a lot is going on. We had this kind of downtrend. We had a nice kind of Wyckoff accumulation. We've come up, we've retested this perfectly. We now started to break up towards the upside, and it was looking good a few weeks ago until that kind of like Bitcoin ETF cool off. You know, if the market gets going again, which I think is happening right now, guys, with ETH booming, I think Mana Decentraland has a continuation. And from current levels to the next kind of spike, you're looking at 67, 130%. And actually back to all-time highs, Mana Decentraland, which again was very hype driven in the last market, but I don't see why that hype can't arrive again. 11x. And I think if the VR headset really comes in and people start to use and interact with the metaverse more, can it 2x its previous all-time high? Then probably, yeah, 20, 21x. Not unheard of. And because it hasn't really been booming much recently at all, the kind of the downside risk is less than it is in some of the coins that have been performing very strongly recently. In my opinion, could be wrong, Go and do your own research. Now, just as a bit of a bonus, I wanted to throw this onto the end because I think it's something that people aren't really paying attention to right now, and they really need to. If we look at Mana Decentraland, back in its early stages, you can see all the way back in August of 2020, you could have been getting involved in a project like this at ICO or before the ICO even happened at the very best rates. And from them, you would have enjoyed like 120, 130x. But it's difficult to know which of these projects are going to go and do well. Therefore, I recommend going and checking out launchpads. Now, if you come to cryptorank.io, you can come down below and you can check out some of the different launchpads that are available and look at their previous performances. Now, what the launchpad is basically doing is basically an incubator for these new crypto projects that are applying to the launchpad to help them get off the ground. You can then go and invest in the launchpad, and then you can go and buy into pre-ICO projects. Now, having checked out a few of them, Seedify sat down here in second with 73 projects, has an incredible success rate on its launches. Now, clicking on the Seedify launchpad, you can see it's been around a couple of years, but it averages around 26x on any crypto project that it launches. And that means that you can be able to potentially participate in pre-sales and pick up coins like Blocktopia that did nearly a 700x during the last bull market. And some of the biggest recent launches, such as Farcana, such as Soil, which has already been killing it, have all been launched through Seedify, and it's definitely worth checking out. Now, coming across to Seedify, we will learn that Seedify is a launchpad for Web3 gaming IGOs. Okay, basically what it means is you can hold Seedify tokens and stake them away in order to be able to invest in new crypto projects before anyone else. And these are some of the projects that they have coming up in the future. Bloodloop is a hugely anticipated project in the GameFi niche, and there's a bunch of others that are expected to do really well. Coming down through, you can see some of the other ones they've been raising for, and it's really a very good opportunity because Seedify goes away for you and vets all these projects to identify whether or not you want to be involved in them. And as these projects do well, Seedify itself does well. So how do I get involved? Now, what I need to do if I want to participate is to go to Stake Fund. Okay, now what I would need to do is have a wallet, connect my fund tokens, and you can go through MEXC, link down below if you want to go and pick up S Fund. Once you buy your S Fund tokens, you can then start to stake them. And by staking S Fund, which you can do on Binance or Ethereum or Arbitrum, and selecting the number of days, you will gain an allowance for the amount of tokens that you can buy from any given project. Now, the more you buy and the longer you hold it, obviously the more tokens you can then buy into some of those ICOs. And as you can see, S Fund has been absolutely booming this year because it's invested in a lot of very successful projects. Obviously, as those projects do well, so is S-Fund going to do well. And as we look at it right now, it couldn't actually look better. I do think that we are going to see a breakout from here. By the time this goes live, it's probably already going to have had a breakout. But I actually anticipate that this price is going to continue to grow because more and more people are investing and seeing the value of getting involved in these pre-launches. Something else we can do, if we come across to June.com and look at Seedify, you can just type Seedify up here. You can see all the quantities of tokens that have been staked. And as you can see, the circulating supply is 59 million tokens, but it's being staked and farmed 33.7. That's a massive percentage that's actually being staked away. Circulating supply really low. That's good tokenomics. Seedify, to be honest, looks like a good opportunity, so you might as well at least go and check it out. I'll leave a link for it down below in the description. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.